now time for the Grobstein and Schuster Express on 1252 Sports Chicago.
All aboard!
And now, here are your hosts, Les Grobstein and David Schuster.
And a pleasant good evening and welcome into the latest edition of the Grobstein Schuster Express. I'm David Schuster. Les has the night off tonight, but he'll be back a little bit down the road. I'll be joined shortly in very capable hands by Mark Carman, who you can follow on Twitter at the Carm. And of course, he's an on-air personality all over the places. He'll tell you in just a couple of minutes here, WGN and so many other places. He does the pre and the post game periodically for the White Sox. So he certainly is doing a good job in that and everything else. And he'll be joining us in just a second. But before we even get to Mark, let's recap what happened this weekend in Chicago sports. Maybe let's not. I mean, because the Cubs and the White Sox today, combined with the Bears yesterday, if you add up all three of those scores, the total was 59-16. 59-16. Just the two games today, the Cubs and the White Sox lost by a combined 18-1. The Bears losing yesterday 41-15. The Cubs and White Sox also lost yesterday's games as well. I didn't bother to add those totals to the mix here. So I guess you could say Chicago sports this past weekend was the combination of the Hindenburg and the Titanic. The White Sox, and I'm going to talk with Mark about this in just a second. I have so many White Sox. My friends are in a complete panic. Oh, my God, they lost 2 out of 3 to Tampa. They just can't beat the good teams. They're resting players when they shouldn't be resting players. I have one guy on a Facebook package today. He just couldn't understand why Tim Anderson was being rested for the second straight day. Well, the obvious answer was because his body's beat up. And then he started getting on the training staff saying, well, the training staff shouldn't allow for this to happen. So, I mean, some White Sox fans, much like Cub fans and Bear fans, they're illogical. But we'll talk to Mark about that. We'll talk to Mark about the Cubs because the Cubs, I mean, they're not even good enough to be a AAA team. They lost for the 13th straight game at Wrigley Field today. That's a new franchise record. There were 30,000 sheep out there yet again. We'll talk to Mark about that. I know he's got views on that. We'll talk to Mark also about the Bears yesterday. Andy Dalton was horrendous, or actually he was pedestrian, I guess is the best way of putting it. And then Justin Fields came in, and he wasn't as good yesterday as he was in the first game, but the bottom line was yesterday it was the Mitch Trubisky show, and Mitch Trubisky just ate up the Bears. In the first 4 possessions that Buffalo had the ball, they scored touchdowns, and Mitch Trubisky was their quarterback. We'll also talk to Mark about the Bulls. I know he's a big Bulls fan. We'll talk about a lot of things, some teams that are streaking in baseball right now, including the New York Yankees, who couldn't play today because of a hurricane that's going on the East Coast. And right now, the Yankees are like a hurricane. They've won 9 straight games. The Dodgers had won 9 in a row until today, so they've won 9 of 10. And the Atlanta Braves have won 9 in a row. So in baseball, it's very up and down for teams. Right now, the White Sox not playing their best ball, although they took 3 out of 4 against Oakland. And Oakland right now is a wild card team, so you can't overall complain. The White Sox still, even if Cleveland wins their game tonight, and they're winning, I believe, at the moment, the lead will still be 9.5. So White Sox fans, please calm down. And with that in mind, let's bring in a good friend of mine, longtime friend. Mark Carman works at WGN, and he works so many other places, does a great job covering Chicago sports. We have been shoulder to shoulder covering sports in Chicago now for just a while, and Alan will bring him in just a second. There's Mark. Hey, buddy.
Shu, this is a complete pleasure, thrill. Thank you for having me. Can't wait to discuss it all tonight. And I think the first ever game that I covered with you, well, it had to have been the 98 Bulls because that was the first time I was getting press passes. Unless, that's not completely true. 97, I weaseled my way into the Cubs clubhouse a couple of times with the sports ticker. Thank you, Bruce Levine. So maybe one of those games, but definitely Bulls in '98 is when I first remember you. So thank you for bringing me on. By the way, again,
pleasure having you. All right, let's start with the White Sox because one of my longtime friends, also Jack Levine, who's also used to be a neighbor of mine. Now he got smart and he moved down to Florida. Anyway, he's one of those White Sox fans that I was talking about who was panicking about the White Sox lead shrinking just a little bit here. You're very involved with the White Sox. You do the pre and post. Maybe you're another voice. You can talk about what's going on with the Sox right now. If they want to rest Tim Anderson for a couple of games, it's not the end of the world. If they lose 2 games down in Tampa, that's also not the end of the world. The object for the White Sox, and I know you're going to agree with me, at least I think you will, Mark, Tony La Russa right now, his main job, of course, they got to win the division, but that's a fait accompli in my mind. Get his team ready for the postseason. Have them at optimum level going into that first playoff series.
No question, and they had a stat on the broadcast yesterday. La Russa's had a division lead in August 11 times. 10 times he's won the division, and they didn't break down a huge lead that he's got right now. So, White Sox fans should just be cruising right now. You don't need to stress the baseball season. You certainly don't need to stress losing 2 of 3 to Tampa. Do the math on it. Dallas Keuchel starts on Saturday. He's not going to pitch against the Rays if you see him in the playoffs. Certainly not down at the Trop on turf. They won't do that. And today Ronaldo Lopez was out there. Who cares? He's not. It's completely and utterly irrelevant. You're by far the best team in the division. And you're going to be in this position if they can figure out the pitching going into next year, for years to come right now. You're in catbird seat. Relax. Everything's turning up White Sox. But if you're going to bet on one team in town to win the next World Series, Stanley Cup, NBA Championship, Super Bowl, you'd bet on the White Sox. Hands down, no question, right?
100%, Mark. And by the way, I want to say hello to another friend of mine, Laura. Hi, Laura. How are you? Good to see you. Good to hear from you. Anyway, again, I think Tony La Russa is either going to be lauded or vilified over the next 6 weeks for how he prepares his team for that eventual first playoff series against whoever it will be. That's the way I look at what's going to happen the next 6 weeks.
Well, it was interesting let's go back here. On Friday night when he takes Kimbrel out and brings in Bummer in the 8th and then feels terrible about it after the fact. Probably didn't sleep. At least that's what Ozzie Guillen talking to him yesterday. Say, I bet you he didn't sleep last night after that one. And Kimbrel clearly upset walking off the mound. Say, come on, man. Like, I'm Craig Kimbrel. I have an ERA of 0.5 point. You don't take me out in the 8th inning if you're not going to let me be the closer. So that was one little blip in Tony's world. But again, first of all, they won that game. Second of all, he realized it, owned it. So that's a veteran manager right there, not afraid to own things to the media and to the ball player. I wrote at the time, Shu, when they hired him and people were going nuts. I'm like, you really think that this dude forgot baseball? You really think that he doesn't understand that the spin rate and that batters are getting out up in the zone and exploding sliders are sweet? And yeah, okay, fine, don't bunt as much and base running or stealing bases is not a great idea. The dude's he's been sitting watching games. I would see him in the elevator at guaranteed rate, when the Red Sox or the Angels would come in town. I'm not saying that that's the hire that I would have made. There's a lot of stuff that went along with it, and DUIs are terrible. But don't tell me that guy can't manage a baseball team, especially a really, really good one like the White Sox.
I didn't have any problem with them hiring Tony La Russa. Obviously, that was Jerry Reinsdorf's decision, and I'm okay with that. And listen, they're up either 9.5 or 10.5 games at the end of today anyway. So there's no problem there. And the division stinks, which certainly helps. You mentioned Craig Kimbrel. Yeah, I didn't agree with what Tony did the other night. Obviously, Kimbrel didn't have good stuff. He had been idle a little while. He had a death in the family. There was a lot of things going on in his life. The umpire was squeezing him on Friday night.
100%.
That was really ridiculous on top of everything else. I would have left him in there. That's me. And Aaron Bummer, honestly, if you want to complain about anything, Aaron Bummer, more often than not, has been one of the guys in the bullpen that has certainly let a lot of people down. So, Tony felt bad after the game. He would have felt worse if they lost the damn game. But, he did say that he had a conversation with Kimbrel after the fact. I would have been curious if he had that conversation.
Yeah, me too. And are they on the same page going forward. It's interesting. Who's your closer? I guess it's Hendricks, but that to me, if you want to pay attention to something down the stretch here, that'd be my top point of interest right now. And of course, how are they going to shake out the rotation? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that Keichel's not going to be in there, and Cease might even be the 4 right now. And then you have your top 3. But if Rodon gets hurt or can't, and that's interesting too. And I guess he's going to pitch on Thursday, supposedly against the Blue Jays. I wouldn't be rushing him back, but maybe he feels great.
Well, you bring up another question that was in my mind. Depending on who they play, obviously, and sometimes if it's a left-handed lineup or a right-handed lineup, depending on who you face in that first round of the playoffs. But that aside, who is your game 1 pitcher?
It's a great question. I guess it's Lance Lynn. I guess, but Lucas is on a roll right now, and he pitched great in the postseason last year. I wouldn't hate that. I'm not throwing Rodon in game 1. That would be my only. He fits, I think, really nice after a righty in game 2. Lance. Listen, for me, who pitched best in September? Who's the hottest? That's how I would do it.
Well, but the only problem with that is that they're probably going to wrap up the division
right
as of right now in mid-September, and really you want to set the rotation as early as you can. And if you're not going to have your pitchers pitch any games of consequence, unlike what they happened in back in 2005. I mean, it got a little hairy there, obviously, at the end. So you should be thinking about that even right now. And I agree. I think Lance Lynn overall, besides Rodon, has had the most dominating of the seasons, even though when Giolito is on, he's really on. Unfortunately, when he's not on, just the opposite, obviously. But yeah, I think it's Lance Lynn because of the veteran experience, because La Russa has managed him, more than once, here in Chicago and in St. Louis. And he's got that bulldog competitive attitude about him. So I think as of right now, I think it would be Lance Lynn.
Great problem to have. Who will be our game 1 starter? How are we going to do it? But if you go back, 93, they didn't set that up right. They were leaning on Jack McDowell because of his pedigree with the team, and that was not a good matchup with Toronto. This is where Tony gets paid the big bucks. Ego cannot matter when you're doing playoff rotations or anything as far as the playoffs are concerned, period. So, which is also interesting on the back end. How's he going to do it? What happens if Kimbrel's, is nails the next 3 weeks and Liam Hendricks is not? Do you make a switch? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I want to remind everybody that we have our walk down memory lane segment coming up in just a little bit. And my God, it involves you, ironically enough. I think you probably even know what it is.
Okay. Now I feel like 13 is going to be invoked
you
here.
Got it. We also have not Stump the Grobber, but we have Stump the Carm today. So it's trivia questions at the end here.
Oh,
so,
I'm gonna get smoked. By the way, just in lieu of Les not being here, Shu, if I may, I want to say that I think I'm the only person in Chicago media that ever moved Les Grobstein. I was an intern. Actually, I was a producer at the Score, and Les asked me one time. He's like, "What are you doing this weekend?" Or what do you got going on this weekend? I thought it was just an innocent question. I'm like, nothing, not much, Les. Great. You can help me move. 3-day move. 3 days. We went to Lou Malnati's twice. Got the low fat cheese. I had to bring in one of my college buddies because I was not. I'm like, Les, I can't do all this myself. Those media guides need another dude. So I had to bring in my guy, Dave Rogers, who you could find on Twitter as well these days.
Well, that's a walk down memory lane segment in itself. And I bet Les still probably has some of that pizza in his refrigerator for him. All right, let's talk about the other team in town. And I'm just going to point blank say the Cubs are just a civic embarrassment right now. They lost today 9-1. At least they scored a run. The White Sox didn't today. But that was their 13th straight loss at Wrigley Field. That's a franchise record for most consecutive losses at Wrigley Field. Here's what I want to ask you about, Mark. I mean, obviously, they made a very conscious decision, and this goes much higher than Jed Hoyer. This is all the way to the top with the Ricketts family. And they made a conscious decision to trade, obviously, all those players and not worry about paying all those guys. And they can mimic all they want that they're going to bring any or all of those guys back. Not a one of them is coming back, by the way. So what are they going to do with all that money potentially that they'll have available in the offseason? And even more importantly, do you think, and I asked this question last week of George Hoffman, do you think that Tom Ricketts should get in front of the microphone and pen crowd and do an extensive interview and explain all the way from the top what his rationale was for this season and going forward what the plan is? Because I think he does. 30,000 people continue to go out there. They're coughing up good money, and they're seeing garbage out there right now.
Right. So, all right, let me tackle this. I guess, okay, you've got all the money in the world, and I don't think the Cubs are interested in bringing back any of those guys either. I think they feel like it's run its course. So you're going to go make a run at Carlos Correa, 27, World Series champion, banging on trash can cheater, but yet a stud. Is he really going to want to come here? Maybe not. I wouldn't feel super confident that he will. Maybe you can be at the top of the market and get him. But look, they spent the majority of my lifetime and yours too, Shu, just trying somehow, some way to field a winner each year and making moronic trades like for Juan Pierre and giving up, young talent to get veterans to try to squeeze out wins. And then finally, Ricketts comes along, hires Theo, and they go about it the right way. And yes, a lot of things fell their way, but they won the World Series. So I know it's big market Chicago, but if you're going to do this, then follow what you did before to race back to the middle because you want to get people back at Wrigley Field and excited to be there. To me, that sucks. And I would also throw in there, if I was Tom Ricketts, I don't want to hear a peep about what, the philosophy of why they did what they did. I want them to get up there and say, look, our fans have paid premium prices for tickets to the games. And we know that certainly they didn't get that this year. So in lieu of that, and as we continue to build this back up, we are going to be reducing prices across the they'll never do it, right?
No, they won't.
Never. But if you're the Cubs, to me, it's the only logical thing to do because it makes 0.0 sense for anyone to own Cubs tickets because if you go online on StubHub, they're half the price. They're 25% the price. So why would you be a season ticket holder or even buy individual tickets at the window when you're always going to get them for less? It doesn't make any sense. You'll have playoff tickets down the line. You know what? For what they charge for playoff tickets, it's not as hot of a commodity. 2016 happened once. It ain't happening ever. I mean, I'm sure I think they'll get back there someday and maybe sooner than later. But the market for the actual tickets and going to the ballpark will never be the same. And that's what I want to hear from Tom Ricketts. Like, look, they're having games rained out on a Monday night, and then they go a split double header the next day. Hey, if you had Monday night tickets and you're paying $160 or whatever it is for these box seats or field box tickets, yeah, now that ticket is good for 1 o'clock the next day when it's 100 degrees out and you got to get off work. That you're just screwing your fans. And you simply do not care. And that to me is just super offensive.
100% on everything you just said. And I had a laugh, of course, reducing your ticket prices. That reminds me of that line in the movie Breaking Away, refund. That ain't happening. I think what the Ricketts and the Cubs are doing, they had this announcement the other day. They're going to have a Cubs Hall of Fame and there'll be a section at Wrigley Field, yada yada yada. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Great.
That's their way of appeasing the fan base by throwing another carrot out there for them to come to Wrigley Field. But the product on the field currently is atrocious. And you hit the nail on the head. People have paid premium dollars either before the season or what have you. And now all of a sudden, 30,000 people are going out there still on a daily basis, basically, to see what they're trotting out right now. It's a travesty.
And listen, I've gotten multiple either Facebook chats or just people texting me, hey, the Cubs are saying that I'm up next. I've been on the season ticket waiting list and now it's going to be my turn. Should I buy the tickets? Of course you're getting that notification. There is no waiting list anymore. There isn't one. There are seats all over the ballpark. Where do you want to sit? You want to sit in the club box? You want to sit up top? You want to sit in one of the premium section that they've built for? You want to pay $200 to sit in the upper deck and have all you can drink? It's all available for you, right? Exactly. And listen, I grew up with WGN and Channel 9. You did the same thing. They're not on WGN anymore. They're on the marquee sports network, and that's fine. But and Wrigley is in a lot better place of the city than Comiskey to get to. I guess at least people live around there. It's not easy to get to, and parking's terrible. But the concept that they're always going to be the 100-pound gorilla in town, and the White Sox are just going to be nothing. I'd be careful if I were the Cubs on that. I would try to do things to make my fans appreciate being my fans, and not then try to alienate them with the way they've done off the field too. Huge.
A lot of the fans are obviously they're throwing some stuff here. And by the way, this is always interactive when it's live here. And I love reading some of the comments. And if we have time, sometimes I can't remember that they're up there. I can't, my memory's not good enough. But I would appreciate all the people putting those things up there. And one of the questions was Sammy Sosa with a question mark. Does he go into the Cubs Hall of Fame? This is going to be really interesting. He did enter to him. Here's the way I look at it. Should he go into the Cubs Hall of Fame? Yeah, he should go into the Cubs Hall of Fame because he was a quote-unquote legendary player no matter what might have happened at the end, what might have happened, ongoing with, performance enhancing drugs, yada, yada, yada. But he did entertain the fans for a decade plus. He should go into the Cubs Hall of Fame. But will the Ricketts do it? Because they're very stringent against him even coming back to the damn place.
So it's interesting. I'm watching yesterday in the rain delay. Top Cub moments. Sammy's all over him. He's, Sammy at the home run derby. Sammy at this home run derby. Of course he should be in the Cubs Hall of Fame. Of course he should be welcomed back. Get over it. He was the Cubs. I mean, it was, and as far as I'm concerned, if Barry Bonds and or anybody of that ilk, Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire's probably not going to get in. But if those guys get in, Rafael Palmeiro, if that changes, Sammy should be in. The dude hit 600 home runs. I know that he's not as good of a player as Barry, but he belongs. If they're going to let steroid guys in, for some reason, Sammy's looked at as he would have been nowhere close without steroids, whereas Barry would have made it. Maybe that's true, but the bottom line is he was incredible. And the Cubs, you can't run from what he brought to you. And for people who have a problem with Sammy, listen, you were all in the ballpark. It was nuts. It was incredible. He was phenomenal entertainment. Okay, and he cheated. And I don't support cheating. But I don't think any of the cheaters should be in the Hall of Fame. But if you're going to put him in, then Sammy belongs.
Randy G, by the way, a faithful listener, viewer, whatever you want to call it, he also agrees that the Cubs organization is screwing the fans. Let me ask you one more Cubs question before we move on to the Bears. And Jake Arrieta, of course, got released by the Cubs as well. He should have. And then he stunk up his 4.5-inning stint out in Colorado as a member of the San Diego Padres. And now he's hurt. And I got a feeling this might be the end of his career. But somebody was arguing with me that he's a legendary player. And I said, no, not a legendary player. He had a legendary season when he won the Cy Young, especially in the second half. He was off the charts. And then, of course, he contributed mightily, along with John Lester, of course, when they won the championship in 2016. But to me, that's not a legendary player. And I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, legendary feels a little too tall. I mean, that's Billy Williams, that's Ron Santo, it's Sandberg.
Right.
I would even say the Cubs should not be able to claim Greg Maddux as a legendary player. What's legendary is that you let him go to Atlanta after he won a Cy Young and he won 3 more. You shouldn't even get to put 31 on a flag at Wrigley Field for how much they messed that up. But I wouldn't call him legendary. But I don't have any problem with, you want to celebrate Jake Arrieta at Wrigley Field. You want to have some plaque from 2015 or one of his no-hitters that's somewhere in the ballpark. I got no problem with that.
Sure.
They won a World Series with him. He won 2 games. He was phenomenal in 2015. Against the Pirates in the wild card game, he was sweet. And he was a phenomenal competitor. That was a guy you wanted on the mound all day long. The way he went out of here, telling Bruce Levine to put on his mask, I mean, that was bizarre. But you can't take away what he did. And to your point, Shu, Legends he's not. He's here. He wasn't here long enough. Period.
That more than anything else might be the bottom line. Another friend of mine, Maryland, biggest Yankee fan I know, and I did give homage to the Yankees, Maryland. I did say they've won 9 in a row, and right now they're a wild card team, and who knows, they might even, I doubt they'll overtake Tampa Bay, but they're playing some really good baseball right now. All right, let's move on to the disaster on the Lakeshore yesterday, aka the Chicago Bears, and the fans probably came to boo Mitch Trubisky. And then he leads the Bills, to 4 touchdowns in the first 4 possessions, and he wasn't Y.A. Tittle in his prime, even in a preseason game, but he did lead the team to 4 touchdowns, bottom line. And the Bears just stunk up the joint yesterday. What are your thoughts on what he and the Bears defense did and didn't do yesterday?
So I actually was happy for Mitch. That's sweet. Have some revenge against the Bears. They did not put you in a great position. I'm not saying that he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL, but I was kind of amused by it. It's a preseason game. It doesn't matter. And a lot of those passes were, little drop-offs that I think, Shu, you might have been able to complete as well. But, as far as Mitch having some success at the Bears' expense, I got no problem with it. And my highlight from the game yesterday was actually a text I got during the game, which was Ed O'Bradovich sending me a text. I'm going out on my balcony to watch the Blue Angels. At least they know what they're doing. So it was classic OB. And those guys are coming back on WGN this year. If I can just promote that show, I appreciate it. There'll be a 1-hour pre and a 2-hour post game for them. So I listen. There's so much noise around Justin Fields now. Don't make the same mistake that you made with Trubisky. I know they're different, but to me, racing him out there in week 1, I don't think there's a whole lot of upside. They're not good. The defense isn't good. The offensive line is in shambles. They traded up to draft Tevin Jenkins. Nice job, Ryan Pace, for the zillionth time doing weird things. And we had a conviction on this guy. That's great, dude. But that doesn't mean you have to give up draft picks and then hide behind you had a conviction. And also an offensive line with back trouble. And then you just by the way, the first time I saw that guy, I'm like, looks a little light for you're going to make that guy a left tackle. And maybe he'll be a good player down the line. Let's not completely write him off. But I just don't think they're very good. And I don't know why you would race your future out there in this particular situation.
Yeah, you're talking about Fields. And I do believe also, by the way, Steve Winkler, yes, you're a friend of mine also. He said, I said hello to everybody else. You're a friend of mine. And there he is. There's Steve. And somebody also, see, that's what I love about this thing being interactive. Yes, you're a friend of mine, Steve. And here's Randy G. We're going to repeat this question. Mark, you could probably see it on your screen as well. You want to answer that one?
Yeah, Randy, we are back after the game. 2 hours. Last year we were on during the week. This year we're back with a 1-hour pre before every game and a 2-hour post. So whenever we're around the game, that can get a little bit tricky when games go a little bit longer. I go on by myself. Hamp and OB watch the game, and then when it's over, they walk in the studio because we obviously do not have the broadcast rights at WGN. So, but yes, we'll be on right after the game.
Didn't have the pleasure of ever working a post game or pre game with Hamp. But I did do it with OB and Doug Buffone, which is the best radio I've ever been involved with. And I watched games with them, and I had to duck because there were things being thrown all around the room. When the Bears were losing, it was the most comical thing of all time, and the best radio, of course, also. Back to the Bears just for a second. You mentioned, drafting the offensive lineman from Oklahoma State in the second round when everybody knew, I mean, maybe not the fan base, of course, but everybody around the league knew that this kid had, lumbar problems and missed 3 games because of that. This is such a Ryan Pace kind of move. I mean, and Ryan Pace has done some, as you mentioned, weird, odd things, and he's not, I think, on the firing seat, or is Matt Nagy, but I'm going to ask you the question point blank. Should they be?
So it's really interesting because I'm totally with you. if they suck this year, I don't think they're getting fired. I mean, if they go 2-15,
Right.
okay. But if it's a 7-10, I don't think they're going anywhere.
Neither do I.
And it's just bizarre. I don't know what pictures Ryan Pace has or how he's just somehow really, you should get a ton of credit for how he's massaged the relationships. I mean, the McCaskies love him. Ted Phillips loves him. Everybody loves the guy until they don't. I mean, eventually he's going to go. But I don't get the sense that he's in any trouble. And you talk to people who cover the team, all the time. Mark Grody out there, our guy. Nobody has a sense that it's really, really around the team that these guys that are going anywhere. So, which is another thing too, by the way, on Fields. Like, if you hold him back, I think it gives at least Matt Nagy a little bit more job security because if you put him out there and he's terrible, well, now like you look bad because you can't develop the quarterback, and then Pace looks bad because he drafted another bad quarterback. I think he's going to be a good player, by the way, but there is incentive in not playing him. But it's just like you traded up in the second round for an offensive lineman that's got a bad back. Why would you do such a thing? You picked the quarterback who started one season at North Carolina and went 8-5 and lost in the Sun Bowl over, and Grandy's having all sorts of trouble off the field, over the guy who went 28-2 and beat Alabama and won the national championship. What's wrong with you? How smart do you think you are? And by the way, like Jerry Krause had the same thing at times, like smartest guy in the room syndrome. You know what worked out for the Cubs? They drafted Chris Bryant because number 2. You know why? Because he was the best hitter in the draft. It was obvious. It's okay with doing the obvious thing. I mean, come on.
I agree. Justin Fields has that it factor, and I think down the road he will be a special kind of player, but not until they get an offensive line. So in the meantime, you know what? No offense, I'm throwing Andy Dalton, the ginger-haired, veteran quarterback to the Lions, and I don't mean the Lions. I mean the guys, any other team. I mean he's going to get swallowed and pummeled. So you know what? Better him, unfortunately, than Justin Fields. That's the way I look at it.
I mean, what did you think of the Bears fans booing yesterday when Dalton's going back out there? It's the preseason, and they're booing Dalton in the second quarter. It's like, can we just get on board? Don't ruin the next quarterback. Just cheer along, Andy. Come on, let's all understand the plan together.
I laugh at stuff like that. Matter of fact, because you've been in the press box, I laugh a lot at Soldier Field for various reasons over the years. I can't help it. All right, let's see. That's enough on the Bears. Let's go to the Bulls because we're both basketball junkies. Obviously, nothing's going on right now. The Bulls have pretty much, played their hand, although they still have the Lowry Markkanen thing to figure out. And eventually, they're going to have to peddle him to somebody for something, whether it's a draft pick or somebody who can help out. Part of me wants to say with Markkanen, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have him. He's still a talented player, coming off the bench, but I think he would be such a mope if that were to happen that you almost have to move the guy. I like the Bulls starting 5. I mean, there's warts here and there. Their bench is, I think they will be a playoff team as of right now, but the idea is to win a championship, and I don't think they're obviously at that point.
So that's the confusing part to me, because even when they made the Vooch trade and people were excited about that, I'm like, he's in his early 30s. He signed for 2 more years. What are you winning with him in the next 2 years? You're giving up a draft pick that's going to be in the lottery. If you told me that I could have Vooch or Patrick Williams, I'm taking Patrick Williams. So I didn't like. You're trying to get to be the 5th seed in the East, squeeze out win the first round of the playoffs. I mean, it's better than what it's been, but I don't know. And like even DeRozan, the dude's 32. His best years are behind him. You're paying him $85 million. I don't really care about the money, but like, and why are you doing this? Because you're worried that Zach LaVine's going to leave, and I like Zach LaVine, but I'm not running my organization out of fear that Zach LaVine's going to go somewhere. I'm a little confused as to what exactly is going on, and I think Lonzo Ball to me makes the most sense. You needed a point guard. He's a young dude. Unique skill set, plays defense, true point guard, that one I get 100%, but the rest of it I just find a little confusing.
100% on everything. Once again, I always hate agreeing with somebody who I'm on a show with, because it was usually like with Bernstein or somebody, or I don't know, disagreeing on about everything. But anyway, yeah, the Bulls starting five is pretty decent. I mean, Ball is your true point guard, which I've been begging for the last couple of years. No offense to Kobe White. He will stay in the NBA for 10 to 12 years doing exactly what he's going to be doing. First guy off the bench when he's healthy, of course, scoring 20 points, Vinnie Johnson, Jamal Crawford kind of player. So I'm okay with that. So Ball will be that true point guard to make hopefully everybody better. And he's gotten better himself as a player the last couple of years. Zach, will score his 25 points a game. No problem there. Vucevic will have his 20 and 10. He might give up 20 on the other side. That's the problem also. And you got DeRozan. Patrick Williams is sort of, the guy that you're just not 100% which way he's going to go. I think he's got a lot of talent. And in the summer league games, they try to push him to be more aggressive, and he was, and he says that's the way he's going to be going forward. I mean, he's only still, I think he hasn't even hit 20 yet. So, I mean, knock on wood, this kid can do the job. And then if you get some guys off the bench, I mean, Caruso, I actually like. He's a defensive-minded guard who can actually shoot the ball from the outside. I like that. Dosunmu, I don't think he's hardly going to play. I think you'll see him basically in the G League more than anything else. The Simonovic guy, I don't know. I really don't know about him. I'm anxious to see it. And, they really don't have much else off the bench at this point. So, yeah, I think they've improved themselves to get into the 7 or 8 spot, but that's not winning any championships.
Right. And so you've got assets, I guess, to make a trade at some point to further shake things up and uplift you. But you still got to hit a home run somewhere. And at best they're hitting doubles right now. And I don't know if there's pressure from up top to, fill the seats at all, but, and we can't go back and relive the whole Derrick Rose era. But when Derrick got here, that team had a chance to win the whole thing. It just didn't work. It didn't work out, but it was, we're both huge 23. I don't need to see any other basketball player in my life. I got to experience the greatest thing ever. Mm-hmm. But the Bulls were a ton of fun in the Rose era. Yeah. I mean, those were fun games to go to. It was a great atmosphere in there. And I would just love to see that come back on some level where they're playing games that are, you feel like they have a chance to actually do something. And I don't see that going on right now.
Nor do I. All right, before we get to just a little bit on the Blackhawks, I mean, obviously they're not in season, although their, training camp is coming up fairly soon, I guess. Have no idea on Jonathan Toews. We saw the one interview with him about a month ago when he came and worked out. I hope he's healthy. I really do. He's really a good person, and I hope the best for him. Patrick Kane is still in the prime of his career. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to win another Stanley Cup here in Chicago. If he's going to win another one, it's going to probably have to be somewhere else. That's just my opinion at this point. And it's too bad because he's one of the most fun players and talented players, Mark, I think I've ever seen. And the thing that I've always said about Patrick Kane, as great as he's been, and he's been great, I think he's sort of been my friend Marilyn will laugh at me, gypped a little bit or jobbed because he's had different line mates. I mean, when he was with Panarin, if he could have had Panarin on his, on his line for the next 10 years, it would have been unbelievable. But unfortunately, Patrick Kane has always had different guys on his line, and I think that's held him back to a small degree, but he's been so great otherwise. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I'm just like, if you're the Hawks, you're not giving up Patrick Kane. I think you're considering having him play his entire career here, right? But there is like one part of me, like, that dude helped you win 3 cups. Mm-hmm. Do you not at some point perhaps owe it to him to put him in a spot where he can win another one and thank him for everything? Maybe even the same thing with Toews. And let's all hope that he's back healthy and all that. But what they did for Dunk, I think it's a class. By the way, everyone said they made a great trade there too. So go Stan Bowman. But I mean, the Hawks are trying to do the same. They're trying to do it on the fly. And where they've ended up is in the, the back end of the middle. And that's just, I don't know. I just think it's very hard to do. Like, I'll put it in hoop terms for it. Like, the Spurs were a playoff team forever, and they were, always good. But the Hawks haven't quite been able to do that. But, I don't know. I feel like sports fans don't get enough credit to how smart they are. Like, we're willing to go to the bottom. Like, they'll never support that. Of course they'll support it. Cub fans certainly will support it. And okay, fine, it might be empty at the United Center for a little while, but then it comes roaring back, and the Hawks can be the biggest thing in Chicago again once they start winning. And that's totally fine. So I don't know. They're in a tough spot. Those guys still have something left, but also, like, maybe you owe it to them to put them in a better spot to win a cup.
All right, before we do our 2 segments here, just a couple other things in the sports landscape. Did you laugh a little bit? Or maybe that's not even the right word. LeBron was apparently pissed off that they did a poll around the league about who's the best players, and obviously Giannis and Durant are 1 and 2, 2 and 1, and LeBron this time around did not get a top player in the NBA, and he's still a top 5 in my estimation, which is amazing, and he is an amazing player. But were you amused by that, and do you think that motivates the old guy here?
So it was an interesting week in the LeBron Jordan front, because I interviewed Cade Cunningham, the 19-year-old who went number 1. And I'm like, Cade, I'm an MJ guy. I'm assuming you're going to say LeBron's the GOAT because you never saw Michael play. And he says, indeed, yes, that's how I look at it, because I saw LeBron. LeBron's my GOAT. And I made a little news here, Shu. I got Bleacher Report's retweeting me. ESPN picked it up. I was excited about it. But the LeBron thing, it's like a great talking point always, because he gets bothered by these things.
Yes.
Like, why? Like, just, dude, you're LeBron James. You act like you're. Yes.
And he's a billionaire.
Well, he acts like he's disrespected, and he's widely considered the second greatest player of all time. And some people think he's better than Jordan. Dude. Yeah, right. And they're wrong, woefully wrong. But, like, you're not being disrespected. You're considered better than Kobe, better than Magic. People put you ahead of all the centers. I don't know. Did they not lose to the Dallas Mavericks after being up 2-1 in the series, and J.J. Barea was guarding him, and he scored 8 points in Game 4 and was minus 24 in Game 6? You're not disrespected, dude, at all. And he's phenomenal player, phenomenal. Freak of nature, all of it. But don't complain about people doing that stuff. You've gotten enormous respect for what you've done for the game. Enormous.
Yeah. It's almost like he's flopping on and off the court.
Right.
It's sort of comical. Miguel Cabrera hits his 500th home run today. He's obviously a lock for the Hall of Fame. And Manny Pacquiao, I don't know how big of a boxing fan you are. I'm a huge boxing fan. And he just didn't have it last night. I mean, Father Time did catch up to him last night. It's a good thing he didn't go against Errol Spence, who had to pull out of the fight because of a detached retina, because I think Spence would have knocked him out. Manny just looked old and slow last night. And your Dennis Ugas from Cuba won the fight last night. I don't know if you're a boxing fan at all.
Shu, I mean, I can't comment on any of that. I know nothing. But I got to just say this. For people who love David Schuster, and the list is obviously long because there's about 1 million comments on, you are a true sports guy, dude. Like, there's like literally nothing that doesn't interest you. It's impressive. Like, you'll pay attention to what's going on in the league. You're obviously dialed in on everything that's going on in Chicago, and then here comes boxing. Here comes Shu, like right there with it. I mean, it's impressive, dude. I love
boxing. I'll tell you what, if I could have made a living just covering one sport, it might have been that one, because it's such a dirty, dirty sport. It's a combination of Gladiators and Three Stooges and All My Children. I don't know. It's just a combination. It's such a dirty, dirty sport, but I love it.
Who's your all-time favorite?
Boxer? I mean, obviously Muhammad Ali is way, 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 way up there. He's the only athlete, Mark, that I've ever encountered in person that I was in awe of. And that was early on. I mean, when he was still Muhammad Ali. Unfortunately, I've told the story a lot of times. I met him so many other times late in his life, out in Arizona when I was covering spring training, and he would come into Don and Charlie's with his entourage, and he was not in good shape. Sugar Ray Leonard was just fun to be around. Marvin Hagler. There's so many of them. I appreciate the warrior mentality of all those guys. I really do.
Marvin Hagler was amazing. So was Sugar Ray. They were great.
Really was. All right, our walk down memory lane segment, and you know what it is. And help me because you're going to have to fill in some blanks here. There was a time, was it before a game, after a game, practice? It was at the United Center. I just don't remember what the circumstances were.
It was after Game 4 of. It was the last time the Bulls were Game 3. It's the last time the Bulls were relevant. Rose hit the banker to put them up 2-1 in 2015. That was the night, and there was hope that. And then LeBron on that Sunday hit the corner. Jumper over Jimmy, and then they had a very tight Game 5, and then they got smoked in Game 6, and Tibbs walked out of the United Center, and that was the end of the run. But it was Game 3.
Okay, well, anyway, we're talking to Joakim Noah in the hallway. You said earlier on number 13, and that's actually exactly what number he wore. And I was standing next to him, and you were standing, I think, on my right side, and you asked a question, and he looked at you sort of with astonishment and also disdain. I can't remember which one more of the other. And I think because I felt sort of uncomfortable, I quickly jumped in with another question to try and cut off the tension, if you will. Am I saying it rightly?
Yeah, mostly. So here's the story. Like earlier in the game, LeBron had a backdoor cut on the baseline, and he dunked on Noah. And LeBron stared him down, and Noah and they gave LeBron a tee. And Noah starts clapping at him, and the crowd's going nuts. And I thought it was awesome. And so the Bulls win the game. Rose hits the banker, and everyone's in a great mood. And I say to him, did you enjoy the moment with LeBron on the baseline? Because I thought he did. And I thought it was a logical question. And he's like, when I got dunked on? And I'm like, and then at that point, and I had some little relationship with Joe. It wasn't certainly not the first time I was talking to him. He'd been there for a long time. And so at that point, I just would kind of I'm like, yeah, when you got dunked on. And then he took it to the next level. Why would I enjoy getting dunked on? And I was like, well, the crowd got into it. And then that's when you were like, Joe, let me butt in here. and he looked at me. He's like, he had to throw it in there. Awful question. Just awful.
Yes. And listen, if nothing else, he was very honest with his thoughts, which most of us appreciated it most of the time because it was such a good interview. But if he wanted to tell you something, just the Chamber of Commerce probably hated his guts, but he was honest with his thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Noah fan. I think they should hang 13 from the Raptors. He was heart and soul of the team. And, I'd love to see that out there. I think they should hang number 1 too. But I'm not as you don't have to be a Hall of Fame player to have your number hung. I think they should hang number 2 also. Norm Van Lier belongs up there. Damn it.
100%. By the way, I think they're giving out number 2. I think Lonzo Ball is going to be wearing it.
Is that right?
I think so. I saw them handing out the numbers. The day of the press conference about a week and a half ago, whatever it was. And I think number 2 is being handed out. Listen, if Lonzo Ball is going to wear number 2, those are big, big shoes to fill, because Norm Van Lier, oh God, I loved that man. I really did. He was such a good guy. All right, let's move on. I don't know if Alan has it already set up here, but we're going to do our famous segment. Today, it will be Stump the Carm. Normally, it's Stump the Grobber.
What was that?
That doesn't really make sense.
What?
Live and let live.
I'm not familiar with that
It's
expression.
a James Bond.
Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Of course, I'm alive.
Queens on casino night. I am going to drop a deuce on everybody.
Just want to say for the record, I did not kill anyone. Stanley was attacked by his own heart.
I know where this is going.
Do you? Okay. It's now time for Stump the Grobber on the Grobstein and Schuster Express.
All right, normally it is Stump the Grobber, but today it's Stump the Carm. Give it your best shot. Don't worry if you get them any wrong. Don't worry. We won't put this on social media. Oh, wait a second. This is on social media. I take it back. All right, here we go. Question number 1. Justin Fields. at Ohio State, he was very accurate. I mean, that's the thing that really turned on most scouts, is that the guy was very accurate with his throws. In his 2 years, he only had 9 interceptions total, okay? Who holds the record at Ohio State for most career interceptions by a quarterback?
Throwing the most?
Yes.
Wow.
There's a lot of quarterbacks at Ohio State over the years.
Mike Tomczak?
He is in the running, but no.
Okay. I got no chance.
I'll give you a clue, and then you'll know it instantly.
I don't even know if I will, but go ahead.
Oh, this guy had a little bit of a gambling problem.
Oh, I'm guessing now. Art Schlichter, is that right?
That is the answer. Yes. That's a pretty obvious, guess after an easy hint there. Yeah, Schlichter. See, you have to take a look. Schlichter, quarterback for 4 years at Ohio State. Fields only did 2, because nowadays, these guys are moving on to the pros rather quickly. Schlichter had 46 interceptions in his 4 years.
Wow.
And I didn't even know Ohio State threw the ball that much. They have 46 interceptions. All right.
Yep.
Speaking of interceptions, Andy Dalton had one yesterday, and likely will have quite a few come the regular season. Real simple. Where did he play his college ball?
Andy Dalton played his college ball. Can I cheat on this? Wow, I should know this. Don't know. Terrible. I'm going to guess Louisville?
No. He played his college ball at TCU.
Okay.
TCU.
A Horned Frog. Okay.
Yeah, and they won the Rose Bowl the year they went. I think it was 2009.
Andy Dalton won the Rose Bowl at TCU. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean,
all right, we got him now, Shu.
Okay. We got 3 more giving you a chance. Okay. The Cubs are well on their way, potentially, I should say, of losing 100 games this season. Who was the manager of the Cubs the last time they lost 100?
The last time the Cubs lost 100 games. Wow.
The Cubs have only lost 100 games. I was a little surprised by this. I think it's only 3 or 4 times in their history.
Yeah, I don't. So, like 97, the team that started 0-14, I don't think they lost 100.
Nope.
So that would have been obviously. So we're not talking Riggs. We got to go way back. This is the Grobstein Schuster. We don't have to go way back.
No.
We don't have to go way back. Okay, hold on. So maybe it's after 97, one of those 11 years. Okay. I don't think Dale Swaim is the answer.
Dale Swaim is the answer.
All right, Dale Swaim, way to go, buddy.
Dale Swaim, 101 losses in the year 2012. That is the correct answer.
Wow. Okay.
Good. You redeemed yourself. All right. The White Sox, we talked about them back in 2005 when they won. They won the division. I was at that game this day in Detroit. Okay, 2005. It was about 4 games before the end of the season after they righted the ship. Who was the winning pitcher the day they won the division?
Oh, boy. So should I go off the board? Wilson Alvarez? Should I stick with Alex Fernandez? I'm on 93. I'm okay. 05. 05. Okay, never mind. So I'm guessing that off the board, you wouldn't give me this question if it was Burley. John Garland, Shu.
Close. Close. I mean, he was in both those guys were in the rotation. It was another guy who was in the rotation.
Let's lefty?
No.
I'm trying to remember. 05. El Duque?
No, but you've named every starting pitcher except this guy.
Who am I missing? Freddie Garcia?
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Freddie was refresh my memory. He was related to Ozzie?
I think that's right. I want to say cousins.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he earned his feathers, even though there was nepotism involved. He was one of, listen, when the White Sox that year in the postseason They went what, 10 or 11-1, and that series against the Angels, all four of those guys had complete games. That'll never happen again in Major League Baseball.
It was unbelievable. That team 11-1. And I always looked at it like that was a fluke. They didn't go back to the playoffs. Even though in 06 when they win 90, they did win 90, but I don't know. Then I'm starting to look at the Cubs thing, like rather than they should have won whatever, they were lucky to win the one they got. Not as big of a fluke as the 05 Sox, but still lucky to win one.
Okay. All right. Last question here. We'll go back to the sport that you love best, the NBA and the Bulls. 87 NBA draft. Scottie Pippen was drafted by Seattle, traded to the Bulls, who drafted somebody else. And who did the Bulls trade to Seattle for Pippen?
That one I got. That would be Olden Polynice.
That is correct.
Way to go, Jerry Krause. R.I.P. You nailed that one. Forever and always.
I've read so many stories, and I've had listen, Jerry Krause actually, I don't know how close I was, but he took a shine to me for whatever reason. He liked me. And so he would tell me stories. I had to get him. And, that was when he was at his sleuthness, if you will, and he was so determined to get Scottie Pippen, and he pulled it off. And listen, it helped them win quite a few championships.
Yeah. No question. And that year, I mean, he wanted to draft Joe Wolf with I think it was the 10th pick for Horace. And everybody told him, Jerry, we want Horace. And on some part of me still thinks he's an idiot for wanting Joe Wolf, but he gave in and said, okay, y'all want Horace, we'll draft him. So that draft set up the whole thing.
Well, of course, Michael wanted, Joe Wolf also being a fellow North Carolina guy. And listen, Michael, unfortunately, has proven in quite a few places that he's not the executive that he wanted to be, or, he used to, obviously, they made fun of Jerry Krause a lot. And some of it was because of appearance. But Jerry Krause was the architect in a lot of ways of the Bulls championship. You don't win anything without Michael. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But Krause did his job. He built around a two-guard, which was unusual, and it worked. So he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, I still struggle to give it to him. And that you built around the greatest player of all time. You figured out that the guy who could shoot in the corner was valuable, and I can't. Shu, you're more professional than me around this one. I'm still. He created so much turmoil around the team that was so unnecessary, but he also had he gets so much credit for the Cartwright for Oakley trade. It was a more impressive trade as far as big man. He traded Stacey King for Luke Longley. That was a hell of a deal. I mean, Luke helped. I don't know if you watched that doc on Luke. It's a good hour of entertainment.
I did, actually. Yeah. And then there was a follow-up. I don't know if you've seen this, because Luke was not involved with the Last Dance at all because he was over in Australia. And after they did the interview with Luke Longley, this Australian TV network, whatever, they got a hold of Michael. And they did like a sit down with Michael for 20 minutes where they asked him almost the same question for 20 minutes about Luke Longley. And he went on and on and on and on. And, he pulled no punches. He said that he was really hard on Longley, yada, 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 but he liked Longley, yada, yada, yada. It was really interesting because Michael, I'm surprised that he, at some point, didn't either change his stance or get a little upset with some of the questions, because it was the same question for 20 minutes. Tell me about Luke Longley and how he was as Chicago Bull. And Jordan was honest about it. It was pretty interesting.
That shows that he really had a lot of respect for Luke and Mike, who normally only does things that Mike is involved in. Wanted to be a good professional Mike for Luke and for the interviews, whatever. Can you, before we leave, can you tell us like a first, like an 86, 87, 88 covering Jordan memory that pops in your mind that I know absolutely. I would love to hear?
I can tell you it right off the bat. I mean, I've been saying this forever and ever. It was, I think, his third or fourth game. It was a Sunday afternoon. Listen, people did not know who Michael Jordan was yet. Okay. They knew him from the Olympics in North Carolina, but not in the pros. And they're playing San Antonio, and Gilmore was on the Spurs at that point. And Artis Gilmore was a legit 7-2. No ifs, ands, or buts. and Michael went down the lane, and Gilmore went up to block. All right, so Gilmore 7'2", he's a foot over the rim. Jordan goes a foot and a half over the rim, over Gilmore, and stuffs on him. There was only probably about 3,000 or 4,000 people on a rotten Sunday afternoon at the United, or not the United Center, it was this old Chicago Stadium. And it was like, if you didn't know it already, it was like come to Jesus moment. Oh my God, we just saw God. And that's the way he was. And I said this forever and ever, Mark, there wasn't a game that I ever witnessed, and I saw all of Jordan's games, almost all of them. Not all the road games, but a lot of the big ones. Certainly every home game. There wasn't a game that I saw him in person that I didn't go, oh my God, what did I just see? And for me, he was the combination. You talk about these great ballet guys, Nureyev and Baryshnikov, who could do fly in the air and all this kind of stuff. That's what Jordan was. He was absolutely the best athlete I'll ever hope to see or be around.
Yeah, and also to see him from, I don't know how many years you sat at the scores table, but
all of them.
Okay, so it's nice to have a great seat for a baseball game or pick any sport you want. But being on the court, call it first 5 rows back for an NBA basketball game, it changes the whole experience.
100%.
It's so good, and you can experience it like you just took 4 strides and you're up the court. Like you can appreciate it. In like whenever I would get to sit down there, and there was on the old stadium, the hockey boards, there was always this one little gap in the seat. These owners would never sit down there, so we would sneak down from the mezzanine down there, and we'd watch the second half. And I'd make my 65-year-old father at the time sneak in down there with me because once you got down, it's like, this is so incredible. But to see Michael from that point, you really just get even a better idea of just how superior he is to insane NBA basketball players.
Well, and the beauty for me being at courtside, and I had the best seat in the house, literally the best seat in the house to watch all this. Not only could I see everything, but I could hear everything that he said. And he might be the all-time trash talker. And he would tell whoever's trying to cover him what he was going to do, and he would do it. And he was, I don't know how else to put it. He's the greatest athlete I'll ever hope to be around or witness in person. Just the best.
I will forever miss it and forever be grateful that I was there. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm forever grateful that you joined us tonight, and you're a Hall of Famer in your own right. And why don't you tell everybody real quickly, because you got your hands in so many pies. Tell everybody what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so follow me at the Carman on Facebook. I put up my stuff, but I do a lot of video and podcasting and writing over at FanSided and WGN as when I'll be doing the Bears show and occasionally when they let me fill in. Just doing a regular show, and then we'll see if I can get back on TV and pop in for another White Sox pre and post. So a lot of stuff on YouTube. It's, you know how it is, Shu. You got to have your hands in as many places as possible nowadays. So FanSided YouTube, if you really want to see, if you're really jonesing for more Carman, there's a lot of videos up there, including me. Yeah,
maybe you'll get a ring if the White Sox win the whole thing this year.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what they're thinking over there.
I know Jerry. I know Jerry. I'll have a conversation.
Okay, I appreciate it. Hey, they were on GN for 3 years. White Sox Weekly with AA prospect. I deserve something here. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, appreciate you joining this again, Mark. Appreciate it a lot.
Shu, thanks for having me. It was my pleasure. Appreciate you.
I will talk soon. Take care, everybody.